Hi, I'm Annette Greaves from Compass for Recovery, and today I want to talk to you about a beautiful oil, one I love called frankincense, and share with you a personal story of how this oil transformed life in our family. Following that, we'll look at ways that you can use frankincense in your home to support you and your family. And finally, we'll finish with an activity of the day, something quick that you can do if you've perhaps been looking for inspiration to take the lid off your own bottle and haven't done so already. So let's get stuck in. We'll start with our personal story of how we were introduced to frankincense and the benefits it's had for us. Just over 4.5 years ago, our little boy, who was 6 and a bit at the time, fell and landed 3 meters down on a concrete floor. He suffered a severe traumatic brain injury. He had 3 brain surgeries. A section of his brain, the left cerebellum, was removed. He was left profoundly deaf in his left ear, and he suffered partial paralysis through the left side of his body. It's fair to say that the injury was life-changing for Josh, for our son. It was a real moment in time for Clint and I as his parents, and a complete change in trajectory in the path through life that we thought we were going to walk and the one that we were facing at that time. And as we started Josh's recovery process, we moved out of hospital and into an inpatient facility, a rehabilitation hospital, and began the process of getting him back on his feet. And Clint and I learned at that time that, in our experience anyway, that the recovery from a brain injury almost has 2 pathways. There's this physical recovery, and then there's this emotional recovery, this ability for the body to recover regulation of its own emotions. That's certainly what we faced. And the physical recovery was very intense, but it went very well, and it seemed to progress fairly quickly. You know, when Josh was first hurt, he couldn't even sit up in bed, and so we had to start at the beginning and progress through the sit, stand, walk, run, activities, and that all worked incredibly well for him. We were so lucky and so grateful, and with a lot of OT help as well, the physical, the dexterity and the fine motor skills, and the left-hand sided paralysis, we were able to recover as well. Great outcome. But even as we were watching this physical recovery unfold in front of us, Clint and I became very aware that Josh was quite a different little boy to the one he had been pre his injury. Prior to being hurt, he was quite a mellow little guy. We kind of breezed through the terrible twos and so forth, not too many dramas in our house. But following his injury, he was a much more emotional little guy. And as we sat with the specialists, we were sort of reviewing where he was at and how things were going. The specialists, I think, very correctly said to us, that brain of his has had so much trauma. He's had incredible recovery on the physical side of things. Give the emotional side of things its own time, its own pathway to come right. It will. And we trusted them in that, and we moved forward. We finished our time in the live-in facility, came home and continued Josh's recovery journey with the specialists around us in our community and at the Children's Hospital. The only problem with what they said was, it turned out that the recovery on the emotional side of things didn't continue to improve. It got progressively worse. And at the 3-year anniversary of his injury, our family was in complete crisis. Josh's emotions had become bigger and more out of control, and we were less and less able to help rein him back and help him manage things when he was feeling very emotional. And at this 3-year mark, we were seeing a psychologist up to twice a week in a desperate attempt to put our arms around everything he was feeling and to help support him through. And as I sat with his GP at this time, she said to me, "Do you think Josh needs to be medicated?" And I remember my heart sinking, and I remember thinking, I don't want to. But I said to her, look, I'm out of options. Nothing is working. And more terrifyingly for us, his parents, we're watching him get worse. He's not improving. He's deteriorating week on week. There are no other pathways for us to try. We've tried everything and nothing has made a tangible difference. And I said to her, look, I said, I think we're at that point. I've got nothing left to try. He's got a lump of psychologist sessions left. I said, can you let me get through those and then we'll talk again? And she said, sure, let's do that. And pretty shortly after that appointment, my beautiful friend, Sarah Massey, put a bottle of frankincense in my hand. And she said, look, she said, I know Joshy's brain has been injured. And she said, I hear that, you know, this oil, frankincense, might have some benefits on the brain. She said, look, I don't know. Why don't you try? Why don't you give it a go and see how it works out? And I believe in the perfection of God's timing, I think, when I, recall that moment, because prior to that, I was about the most traditional mum you could ever find. I didn't do any kind of alternative wellness at all. I believed that if you had an issue, you saw your GP and you took those pathways. But when Sarah placed this bottle in my hand, I was also the mum of a child who was deteriorating, a mum who had for 3 years watched things get worse, not better, and who could see very clearly that everything we had access to wasn't making that tangible difference to my child's quality of life, and life for us as a family was just getting worse and worse. So she said to me, right, put a drop on your thumb, push your thumb into the roof of his mouth, let me know how you get on. That night we went home and I did just that. It didn't go well. If you've smelt your frankincense oil, it's a very strong, pungent, rich oil, and Josh was absolutely convinced that Mum was trying to poison him. And given the behaviour at the time, that may have been tabled 1 or 2 times. Anyway, it didn't work. There was a huge emotional response. It was very negative, and I couldn't see the point in continuing with something that was, only supposed to make things better, but was actually just adding another level of complexity to life. So a week later, when I saw Sarah, I said, look, thank you. It's not working. Let me hand you back your bottle. And she said, oh, she said the thing that changed our life. She said, why don't you try putting a little bit on his big toes? I understand there's a reflexology connection between the big toe and the brain. And I thought, well, sounds easy enough. We'll try it. And we did. And again, I had no expectation, God love us, the number of things we had tried that hadn't worked. And I thought this was going to be just another one. But very quickly, I noticed, I'm talking 24, 48 hours, we had a good day. And you might think, well, what does that mean? We didn't have good days back then. We had days of huge emotional outbursts, multiple big outbursts. And all of a sudden, we had a day where our child was okay. That was rare. And as one good day turned into 2, turned into 4, turned into 8, I started to think about what was different. And this was the only thing that was. And I rang Sarah and I said, can you come and sit with me and talk to me about this oil? I said, I don't know what's happening, but I know I'm seeing changes in my child. Can you help me? And she did. And that was the start of our journey with frankincense. And as we sit now just over the 4.5-year mark from when he was hurt, I can't believe the changes that we've seen. And I couldn't be more grateful for the fact that somebody gave me some of this to try. Because if I think about what's changed, I can probably sum it up in a handful of significant things. Number one, it's the emotional regulation in our child. Prior to frankincense, he would get very emotionally worked up, completely overwhelmed by whatever he was thinking or feeling. There was no connecting with him, no communicating with him in those moments. He would spiral down and down and down and splat. And when we started using the frankincense, I noticed he had that bounce back factor. And by that, I mean the ability to kind of be disappointed by something or frustrated by something and feel that and move on. That returned. And as we kind of hit the 4.5-year mark, I can say now, over time, my child has regained age-appropriate emotional responsiveness. He's got an ability to regulate his own emotions. We had none of that at the 3-year mark. extraordinary. If I think about the psychologists, you know, as I said to you, at the 3-year mark, pre-frankincense, we were seeing a psychologist sometimes twice a week in a desperate attempt to put our arms around what was going on. As of a year ago, we were seeing the school psychologist and no other psychologist, just the school psychologist once a fortnight. 2018, we have just hit July. We have not needed a single psychologist appointment this year. Now, we have an appointment in early term 3 to kind of check in and follow up on a few things. I think it's relevant and timely. But one appointment in August, it'll probably be, versus 2 a week in complete chaos between them. What a transformation. And more recently, I've seen in my kid an ability to become more aware of how he's feeling and to respond in his own way to what feels right to him. What I mean by that is probably best through an example. More recently, this year, we've had a couple of instances with him where, you know, there's been a situation a couple of months back. We were coming home from school. He'd had a tough day at school, a rough day. And I said to him, buddy, do you want me to do a massage, you know, up and down your spine? We'll put some frankincense on. Do you think that would help? And he said, yeah, Mum, thanks. He said, a massage would be good. He said, but actually today I don't need frankincense. Today I need lang lang. This is a kid who couldn't regulate or control his emotions, is now, because we're using these oils on him, he's experiencing this pain, this frustration, this emotion, and working through it and feeling supported, is now kind of starting to tune into his own body, what his own body needs, and ask for what he feels is right for him. That's a world away from where we were before frankincense oil. And finally, I want to wrap this up. For me, as a mum, for Clint, my husband as well, this oil has been about re-empowering us as parents. You know, in my opinion, I don't think there is a more desperate or frightening time as a parent than seeing your child sick or hurt or overwhelmed and being completely unable to connect with them. It's the most frightening thing I have ever been through. And when you are watching a continual deterioration around this ability to connect in and help your child, it's life-changing. It certainly was for me. Frankie changed that, and I feel that empowered parents make for great advocates for their kids in whatever the recovery journey looks like in the years to come. Oh, I hope that's helpful. I'm sorry this is a longer video, and what I've tried to do is summarize 4.5 rather intense years into a few minutes. I'm sorry to keep you on. Let's talk quickly about how you can use frankincense to benefit you in your life, because I have great news. It's an amazing oil, and you don't need to have gone through what I've been through to benefit from it. So what options do you have? In your diffuser, it's lovely in the air around you. I think it just kind of helps with those feelings of relaxation. That's my experience. If you're not super fond of the scent or the smell of it just yet, can I suggest you grab your bottle of lavender, add a couple of drops of lavender as well to the diffuser and see how that goes. You can obviously use it topically on your skin. Use your carrier oil, use your fractionated coconut oil to help you get the, where have we gone? Help you get the full absorption into your skin. Frankincense through the ages has been talked about as a skin beautifying product. So you really want to kind of, you know, if you're using it purely for beauty purposes, well done you. But make sure your carrier oil is going to let it absorb properly into your skin. We talked about where to put it on the bottoms of your big toe. Rub it in. Bottoms of your feet. There's big pores in the bottoms of your feet. Put it on there and have it sort of absorb up into your bloodstream sort of quickly. I use it on Josh in the evenings up and down his spine to support the central nervous system as well. That's great help from the emotional side of things. And finally, of course, yes, we can take it internally. You can put a drop on your thumb, press the thumb into the roof of your mouth. You can put a couple of drops under your tongue if you prefer and you don't mind the taste. Or if the taste is not something you're fond of, get yourself a veggie cap from doTERRA or from your local pharmacy. Put a drop or two in the veggie cap and just swallow it that way. Great benefits. I think that's it, my lovelies. Check out your PIP, your product information page in each of the countries you're in. doTERRA will have a website. Go to your website, bring up frankincense oil, and on that page you'll see more information about the oil. We've talked a lot about the the emotional support that this oil has offered our family on our very personal story. But there are other things the oil does as well. Skin beautifying is one of the things I think it's been known for through the ages. So check out your PIP, your product information page. Finally, let's finish with an activity of the day. And let's do something simple. This is exhausting, isn't it? Why don't you grab your frankincense oil, add a drop or two to your moisturizer tonight, put it on your face, and wake up beautiful and refreshed in the morning, getting the full benefits that it offers our skin. I hope that's been useful. Again, I'm sorry it's a bit longer than most. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll jump online and answer them. Thank you for watching. I hope it's been helpful. Have a great day.